the session now. Dr. Ramasubramanian sir, shall we start the session, sir? Sir?
Ma'am, am I audible, ma'am?
Now it's audible, sir.
Okay.
Once again, I welcome all the participants for the last session, the 14th session of Atal sponsored faculty development program on sensor technology at PSR Engineering College. It's my privilege to invite our resource person, Dr. B. Ramasubramanian sir, Professor, SRM TRB Engineering College, Trichy. He completed and secured first rank and gold medal in his MTech degree in the field of communication systems from B.S. Abdul Rahman University, Chennai. And he completed PhD in Anna University. He is having more than 10 years of teaching experience in SRM TRP Engineering College, Trichy. He has sound knowledge in subjects like digital signal processing, electronic devices, digital image processing, signals and system, and communication theory, etc. He has published many papers in international journals and conferences. He is acting as a reviewer for IET image processing, IET electronics letter, IET system biology, and computer methods in biomechanics and biomedical engineering, imaging and visualization. He has a citation of 209 and 7 H index and I-10 index, 4 I-10 index score. He published a book for electron devices and he has published 2 book chapters. Now we invite Dr. B. Ramasubramanian sir to share his research ideas in the field of role of sensor in healthcare technology. Welcome you, sir. Sir. Sir, now I can change the presenter also. Sir?
Hello, ma'am. Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Sir, I think you have some network issues, sir, because it's loading in your side. Sir, now you can share your slides, sir. Sir, Ramasubramanian sir, can you have any problem to share? Sir, Ramasubramanian sir, do you have any problem to share? Sir, video is not required because it consumes more data, sir. Share. You can share your presentation, sir. Dear participants, please kindly wait for 5 more minutes. Resource person chart is slide.
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Am I audible? Audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. You're audible, sir.
Sir, thank you. Thank you.
Sir,
Thank
wait
you.
a minute, sir. I will
Confirm, sir.
give the change. Correction, sir.
Yes,
Here
yes,
only,
Rama. Tell me, Rama.
Here only, sir.
Sir.
1 minute, sir. I will give the share option.
Okay, okay, okay.
1 minute, sir. I will.
Okay, okay, ma'am. Okay.
Sir, now you can share your PowerPoint
Yes, ma'am.
slides,
Thank you,
sir.
ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, sir. I already given that share. So last time you exist, no? Again, I have to. Sorry. Sorry, sir.
No issue, ma'am. Is my
Yes, sir.
screen is visible,
Slide
ma'am?
visible, sir. Visible, sir.
Okay.
Sir,
Thank
please
you, thank you.
maximize. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
It's clear, sir. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am.
It's
So
okay, sir.
sorry for
It's not a
so small
problem, sir.
network issue happened.
It's
Yes, ma'am.
it's okay, sir. It's not a problem. Thank you, sir. It's okay, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, sir.
So very good afternoon to Randa joined here. Myself, Dr. B. Ramasubramanian, currently working as Associate Professor in the Department of ECE, and I am the in charge of the department and the Vice Principal of SRMTRP Engineering College, Trichy. So before starting my session, I would like to thank the management, the principal, head of the department, the coordinator, and all the team members for giving me this wonderful opportunity. So in this session, I will give a brief introduction or some information about the role of sensors in healthcare technology. So the outline of today's presentation will go in this way, starting with the introduction about the sensors, and then the sensor and its various application, starting with and then moving on with the medical imaging process, the different diseases, and then wrist wearable devices and pulse oximeter will be discussed, and finally we will conclude. So before starting the session, it is the introduction about the sensors. So before seeing the sensor as a device, as a human, we are having a lot of sensors in our human body. So I am seeing you through my eye. So the eye acts as a sensor. So we are having the nose. The best thing is nose. We are acting as a sensors. And next part, hearing, the air acts as a sensor. And particularly nowadays, since the hottest news nowadays is the coronavirus and the vaccination. So if you see that coronavirus that can be identified, one of the way that is nothing but the way of smell and the way of taste. So this one acts as sensors also. And we are now hearing a lot of the word like black fungus. So that eye will act as a sensor for that one. So our equilibrium, the human body equilibrium, that one acts as a different sensors. So the best sensor and the best system is our human body. So based on that only we have developed a device. We have developed the electronic devices and all the things as a sensors. That is, we have developed the robotics also. So the best six senses that are present is the ear, the eyes, the nose, the taste, that is the tongue, and the touch, the skin, and well as the equilibrium. So these one act as the basic sensory organs. So nowadays, if we lack the process of, that is the activity of smelling, definitely we get a chance. That is, we will be in a doubt to get that coronavirus like that. So similarly, if we lack the lack of taste, definitely it will also make us to think about the coronavirus. So that is the thing. Based on this only, our people, we designed these devices. But now these devices started to rule us nowadays. So what is a sensor? So sensor is a device that measures the physical input from its environment and convert that physical input into a data. So that data can be interpreted either by the human or as a machine or a machine. So the most sensors are nowadays, it is an electronic sensor. We cannot live without our electronic devices. I am moving my cursor through the mouse which is having an optical sensor. You are hearing my voice mainly because of the sensors. So there is no situation, there is no places we are nowadays. So if you enter into our home, we are having our TV, we are having our washing machines, we are having our fridge, we are having our mobile phones, that the touch sensor is there. So everything and most of the things nowadays is surrounded with the sensor. We cannot live without these devices nowadays. Even in this online time, even in this pandemic time, we are spending our time only with our laptop and our mobile phones. We are using it for a useful purpose only, but that mainly have the sensors. So without sensor, we cannot imagine a world hereafter. So sensor, which is nothing but a device that measures the physical input from the environment and convert that physical input into a data. So that data can be interpreted either by the human or a machine. So most sensors are electronics, that I already told you that the physical parameters are converted as an electronic data. In earlier, we have a glass thermometer through which we can able to measure the human body temperature. So that one denotes one of the examples. So the sensors are used to measure the temperature, the gauge distance in automobiles, that detects the smokes, regulate the pressure. So these are all some of the applications that are usefulness of a sensor. So moving on to the types of electronic sensors alone. In electronic sensors alone, there are two different types: analog sensors as well as digital sensors. So analog sensors, you may be familiar. Analog sensor, it converts the physical data in the environment into an analog signal, the continuous amplitude, continuous time signal. Okay, so the analog sensors are much more precise than that of the digital sensors. Because if you consider the digital sensor, it is limited to some finite set of possible values, either 0 or 1. Whereas if you consider the analog sensor, they are continuous. They can account for even for the slightest change in the physical value. Even if a temperature is slightly changed, it can be accounted in case of an analog sensor. Whereas in case of a digital sensor, since we are going on to two different values, only two different values, either 0 or 1, there may be it is not it is restricted to a fixed values. So this is the difference between an analog sensor as well as a digital sensors. So the next one, there are different types of sensors are there. Even if you consider the automobile, it is having dozens of sensors. So even the tire pressure sensor, which it indicates whether the tire is flat or in need of more air. The self-driving car, which was introduced such as Tesla, it is equipped with a lot of sensors. For example, the ultrasonic sensor is there that measures the physical distance between the vehicle and the other objects in the environment. And the home security system, this plays a major role. Whenever we are entering into our home, so the detection of a larger object is done. That is with the help of a motion sensor. Similarly, that motion sensor is used for the home surveillance also. So which detects the infrared radiation in the sensor environment. If we enter into our home, our light get turns on, or otherwise our device, even the fan get turns on, or the AC get turns on. So that this we are moving on into an IoT platform also. So that happened because of the different types of sensor and its development. So the sensor technology is also frequently used in the medical devices. That only we are going to discuss today. So what is the application of sensor technology in the medical devices? So as I told you earlier, this our human body plays a vital role for us. So without a human body, we cannot do. Even if we have a lot of thoughts, if we have a lot of ideas, we cannot implement without if we have a sound body. So for that sound body, particularly the sensor plays a vital role. So today our discussion will be on eye and as well as the skin. So the sensor technologies are also frequently used in the medical devices. The input sensors such as myoelectrodes, they are used in the prosthetic technology. So this detects the electrical signal from the patient's muscle contraction. Even the heartbeat sensor, it detects the patient heart rate as well as the patient's pulse. And the thermometer, we are very familiar with the thermometer, which measures the temperature of the human body. So next thing, the medical sensors. The medical sensors are used in different types of applications, and today our focus is only on this kind of medical purposes, medical applications. So medical sensors, the sensors that are used to diagnose, monitor, or treat the disease in the medical domain, they are considered as the medical sensors. So medical devices can be classified into different classes based on the risk profile. Based on the low risk profile to the high risk profile, it can be classified into different classes starting from class 1 to class 4. So if you consider class 1, this is the lowest potential risk sensor, whereas class 4 is considered as the highest potential risk sensor. So next thing, what are the salient features of a medical sensor? So if you want to use a medical sensor, that must have some features, that must have some quality. So what are they? That we are going to discuss. They should comply the IEC standards, and they also comply with the statutory specifications, including the other enforcement and the standards for quality management, the risk management, the usability, and functional safety, so as to ensure that given device function correctly with response to the given input. Because if you consider the medical field, if you are developing a medical system or a medical device, so no one person should get affected. That there should not be any defect to the people. So that is the important thing of medical systems. For example, even if suppose you can use image processing technology for detecting a type of diseases present in the human body by capturing CT image or by capturing MRI images. But whenever you are developing a system, your accuracy must be 100%. So, and that too tested with the different types of images. Otherwise, it cannot be taken into the practical applications. So only whenever you are employing with medical image processing, a system will be accepted for implementation only if it have a 100% accuracy. So the medical sensor, it should deliver precise measurement with high accuracy. So the measurement should be highly stable and quick and with fast response nowadays. Because we are living in a fast technology. The technology that are introduced in the morning becomes older in the evening. So we have to adapt with the new technology, and at the same time, we should not avoid any new technologies. So in fact, we used to tell our students that don't use mobile phones. But nowadays, we are insisting the students to attend the classes through our mobile phones. So we have to, what is the thing, what I am coming to tell is, so we have to adapt to the technology, we have to make use of the technology, and we have to invent the technology. But at the same time, how we are using it is very, very important. So that thing only we have to teach to our students. So because everything is in our hand, everything is in our fingers only, particularly 3 fingers. So if you are sharing something, that should be done only with the conscious of you. So that is the self-responsibility you are having. So that thing we have to tell to our students. So this is happening nowadays. So why I came to tell is we are moving on with the fast world. So definitely the fast response time is very much essential. And also this medical sensor sometimes provides a digital output that must be serially communicated with the microcontroller and microprocessor so that it can be processed, and if needed, it can be transferred through the communication network to some other remote places. So nowadays we are having weight machines, smart weight machines. So whenever if you stand on the weight machines, the weight is calculated and automatically it will be transferred to a doctor in some other places. So this is useful for the healthcare monitoring purposes. So like that, there are different types of medical sensors, and starting with the human body, these are all the essential things that nowadays we are having. So EEG sensor, which helps to measure the electrical activity of the brain, and using the sensors, we can able to measure the blood pressure, heart rate, and also we can be able to measure the oxygen saturation level with the help of an oximeter. And also we can measure the lactic acid hydration, and glucometer. With the help of a glucometer, we can able to measure the glucose level also. So these are all the different sensors nowadays we are using. So we are starting with the airflow sensors. ECG sensors are used to measure, as I told, cardiogram, you to measure the electrical activity of the heart, and EMG sensors, temperature sensors, the body position sensors, even the sound generators, that is snore sensors. Because even there will be, we can see some people who have a sound sleep, who will have a lot of snores in the night, but they will feel very tired in the next morning. So that is that we have to detect. So that is one of the diseases present in the human body. That for detecting this disease, we can use this sensor, and also spirometers and the glucometer, as I told you earlier, and also this one nowadays it plays a vital role, pulse oximeter. So these are all the different types of sensors that we are medical sensors that are available, and we are experiencing all these things nowadays. And just I want to share some of the sensors that are useful in the medical applications. First one, starting with the temperature probe, which you can also call it as a thermometer. So we know the purpose of thermometer. Thermometers are used for the measurement of body temperature, and this helps in providing the better medication and treatment of patients. So whenever if you feel tired, or if you feel feverish, definitely nowadays we are having the thermometer in our home itself. So which helps to measure the temperature of our body. So next thing is a force sensor. This force sensor is used in the kidney dialysis machines. And there is an airflow sensor which we seen in the last image. So this airflow sensor used in the anesthesia delivery system, laparoscopy, and heart pumps, etc. And the pressure sensors. So the pressure sensors are mainly used in this infusion pumps and the sleep apnea machines. So this is that I told you earlier. There will be some patients who will sleep, who will have a sound sleep, and making a lot of sounds also. But on the next day, he or she will feel very tired. So that is nothing but sleep apnea. So most of the pressure sensors are also integrated with the embedded system. Nowadays, we are moving on to the IoT platform. So most of the sensors are integrated with the embedded systems. So this will be, they are used for the medical diagnosis process, also blood pressure monitoring and infusion pump, etc. So, and some other sensors that are used in the medical field are implantable pacemaker. So this is a real-time embedded sensor system which delivers a synchronized rhythmic electrical impulses to the heart muscles in order to maintain an effective cardiac rhythm. So this is the purpose of this implantable pacemaker and oximeter. There is no need to share about these things, oximeter, because nowadays this plays a vital role. It measures the fraction of oxygen saturated hemoglobin relative to the total hemoglobin count in the blood. And most of us nowadays, we are having a glucometer in our home, which measures the blood glucose concentration. And there are also some other sensors like magnetometer, electrocardiogram sensor, and heart rate sensor. The electrocardiogram sensor, which measures the electrical activity of the heart. We are calling it as the ECG sensors. The heart rate sensors, which is used to count the number of heart contractions per minute. So in addition to that, we are also having a encephalogram sensor, electromyogram sensor, and the respiration rate sensors. The purpose of this electroencephalogram sensor is to measure the electrical activity of the brain, encephalon, which means the brain. Similarly, electromyogram sensor, which records the electrical activity produced by the skeletal muscles. And finally, the respiration rate sensor is used to measure the count, how many times the chest rises in a minute. So this is the purpose of this respiration rate sensor. And so far we have discussed about the normal sensors and the different types of sensors used in the medical field. And now hereafter we are going to discuss about the smart sensors. So integration of the sensors with the communication devices. So we are making it as a smart, because nowadays the industry people, they are looking for a smart workers compared to the hard workers. We know that very well. So we are moving on to the smart technology also. Definitely, all the things are becoming as a smart, making the people also smart. So in this presentation, now we will discuss about the smart sensors. Smart sensors, they are nothing but the devices that takes the information from the physical environment and uses this information or give the information to the embedded system or embedded microprocessor, and the information is transmitted wirelessly to some other remote locations. So what is the purpose of this transformation is to monitor, to examine and maintain the parameters, different parameters with reference to the standard values. So these smart sensors, they have the ability to collect the environmental data more accurately with less error. So though they are used for a variety of applications, nowadays they are used in different types of applications. They are used in the smart grids, they are used in the various types of science application and security mechanism. So we will discuss some of the applications of the smart sensors also in the upcoming presentation. Though the smart sensors mainly relies on the built-in microprocessor or microcontrollers. So we are using Arduino nowadays. We are using Raspberry Pi processor nowadays. So this will play a major role in these along with these smart sensors. So smart sensors, Arduino or Raspberry Pi processor, along with the communication device. So this will combinedly act as a major role nowadays. So the smart sensor, it relies on the built-in microprocessor to help them perform various functions like digital processing. Today we will see one of the two applications related to this process: digital processing, the code conversion from analog value to digital value, the interfacing function, as well as the calculation. So they also determine when the data need to be stored or when it is to be deleted in accordance with the input they collect. If a person needs to be monitored for a longer time, definitely the data of the person must be stored. Whereas if it is an ad hoc event, if there is an ad hoc event happened in the hospital, that the data can be deleted. So there is no need to store all the data. So this is the main thing of smart sensors. So the smart sensors, they also uses micro electromechanical system as well as the VLSI system to make them more important to us. So the MEMS technology, it allows the sensor to handle large amount of data in a fraction of seconds. So this is the very important thing. So MEMS technology, it is allowing the sensor to handle large amount of data in a fraction of second. It also enhances and improves the sensor self-calibration function. The VLSI, as a part of MEMS, it converts the collected data into electrical signal that can be used for processing, even for displaying, recording, and the transmission. So why we need to go for the smart sensor? Smart sensor enhances the some of the following applications, like that of the self-calibration process. It adjusts the deviation of output of sensors from the desired value. As I told you earlier, there will be a reference value for every process that will be compared, and then the adjustment will be done. And similarly, for the communication purposes, that is broadcasting the information about the status to the nearby hospital or to the nearby doctors and everything. And computation, this is also another applications of the smart sensor. And next thing is multi-sense. Yes, there is nowadays we are not even using a single sensor for measurement. We are using a blended of sensors. That is a single, instead of using a single smart sensor, that is different sensors will be combined and it is made as a single smart sensors. That single smart sensor can measure the pressure, the temperature, humidity, the gas flow, and the chemical reaction surfaces, etc. And the important thing, the next important thing is it is cost effective. That is a very, very important thing. So smart sensors are cost effective, it have less hardware, and it is easily portable from one place to another places. So these are all some of the applications. And regarding the smart sensors, how it is work and what they are doing. So initially, the measurements are taken by detecting the physical signal. So once the physical signal is detected, it is then converted into the electrical signal. So this electrical signal will help us to tell the different types of application. For example, this helps to measure and monitor things such as traffic monitoring can be done, temperature monitoring can be done, and different types of industrial application can also be done with the help of these smart sensors. So only the important feature is that it's a configuration. It must be properly configured. So to detect alignment or the installation error, whenever you are installing in a particular device, so that alignment and configuration plays a vital role. So and finally, the communication features, it is communicated with the help of through the WLAN or even Bluetooth technology or Zigbee technology. The data that are collected from the physical environment is communicated to the device at the remote locations. From after processing with the microprocessor or microcontroller, and that will happen through the different types of communication protocols like Wi-Fi, WLAN, Bluetooth technology, or even a Zigbee. So the perfect example of the smart sensor is a connected home. Connected home in sense, as I told you earlier, nowadays we are looking for a smart home. So once we enter, the light turns on. Similarly, if we started from our office and we are moving to our home, based on that time duration, our device must be turned on, like the water heater or the fridge or the AC must be turned on. So that is the important thing that we are expecting. So we are running in a competitive world. So definitely we are looking for this kind of sophistication nowadays. And according to me, there is nothing wrong. We have to adapt with the technology and we have to invent more. But the only thing is we must think of the security and we must be very secure whenever you are giving the data. Because whenever you are moving on to this kind of technology, smart technology, definitely there may be possibility to become insecure. Even if suppose we are having our mobile phone in our hand, so this mobile phone can be handled, that is even the camera, the sensor, one of the sensor present in our mobile phone can be assessed without our knowledge. So even suppose if you are using mobile phones, this experience I had in my life. So I used to, one day it happened to me. I make a call to my brother and I asked him to buy one new book written by one author. Example, take it as a Silkera. So I asked him in the evening, and the next day, this happened in the evening at nearly 7 p.m. In the next day morning, as usual, I am opening my social media pages, particularly Facebook, Instagram, and thing, and I am checking for the new post. So in that post, I was really shocked to see the picture of the author that I spoke to my brother in the last night. So this is happening. Our data are monitored by the social. So whenever you are posting the data in the social media, you must be aware. So you must be aware. And particularly, my kind advice is even whenever you are speaking your secret matters or family related things, please keep away your mobile phones. So that is the best thing, because there are a lot of theft are happening. That is data theft are happening. So only I'm requesting this. So with this, because why I came to tell this is because we are expecting smart homes, connected homes nowadays. That happens because of the development of these sensors. And next, we will see some of the applications of these sensors in different category. So in industrial applications, regarding the industrial application, in industries, the machines and equipments are monitored and controlled for the pressure, temperature, humidity level, and also for vibration. This can be done with the help of the smart sensors. So the smart sensors can monitor all these parameters at one go, at a single go. And it is connected to the network. As I told you earlier, it is connected to the network without any other hardware assistance. So nowadays we are moving to the online platform. Our conventional teaching methodology is converted into the online platform. So mainly because of this, the network development. So even though there is a network development, in one side we are facing some network issue in the other side. So the smart sensor, it also helps to maintain the machinery and also ensure the safety for the employees whenever they are handling the machines. So because of the advancement of robotic technology, so that robotics developed because of the development of sensor technology only. So next to the next application that about the smart sensor is in the field of telecommunications. So in all our home, we are having a smart ration card nowadays. So this is like that of a SIM card, using that wireless identity model. We are using it in the ration shop for buying the goods. So this is also, that is one of the sensor, smart sensor used. And using this card, e-commerce transaction what we are doing. And next thing is a smart test. So small micro electromechanical sensors that you can see, that is used to measure the light, temperatures and vibrations, everything. And next thing is MEMS and process control. That is micro electromechanical systems are a very small physical systems. The MEMS sensor as a car, it is a combination of, from the name itself, we can tell it is a combination of electrical and mechanical components, and uses a modified integrated circuits. So we have to admire this one also, because earlier, whenever we got freedom, we can able to see a system in the size of a room. But nowadays, if you see, we are having sensors which is very, very small, similar to that of our nail. Up to the nail, it is reduced. The size is reduced. So, and next thing is particularly in the defense applications, the smart cameras. We are in the defense. In the case of an defense, smart cameras are used, and the smart cameras can detect the objects and perform the crowd pattern analysis. They are also used to identify the secure zone intrusion and detection. In this case, this plays a vital role in case of a defense application for detecting the intruder from one country to one border to another. And also by using this happened only with the help of an advanced software analysis. And I think we know very well that the frequency range, there will be a separate frequency range will be used for this defense application, military applications. And the smart sensor, they are also used in monitoring the EMI fatigue loading, thermal cycling and vibration and shock level and corrosive environment. And the next thing, moving on with the next applications of this smart sensor, the smart sensors are mainly used in the biomedical application also. So biosensors are there, biochips are there. So microphysiometers are there. This is mainly used in this case of biomedical applications. Even we are having an e-healthcare systems. So for monitoring the elderly people, particularly nowadays, we are using it for monitoring even the corona patients. We are using it for that one. So this is because of the advancement of that sensor technology only. And next thing, this fingerprint recognition. So in the smart sensors are mainly used in this fingerprint recognition system also. So nowadays, earlier, that is the attendance of the faculty as well as the attendance of the students are recognized with the help of this fingerprint technology. And even we are using it for nowadays we are using it for the government applications also, for this fingerprint technology. And in addition to that, we are having an iris technology, and we are having a gait recognition technology. So iris technology, I think you will be very familiar with iris technology. So even the iris of twins will be different. So based on that iris, we will have a recognition system also. And the next one that is developing in the recognition system is gait recognition system. Gait, which is nothing but the walking style of a person. On observation, it is found that the walking style of a person is differ from one people to another people. In earlier, even now, we used to identify a particular person. If suppose if you are sitting in our first floor or second floor or in the terrace, we used to identify a particular person based on the walking style of him. So using that by a walking style of a person, we can able to recognize the particular person. So that is nothing but gait recognition technology. So that also plays a vital role nowadays for security system. So that happened mainly because of the camera technology. So that can be done with the help of the camera technology only. And next one, moving on with the pattern recognition, this is also plays a vital role. So when the sensor detects the contour of a particular object, it compares that detected object with the reference image. So this is happening in a lot of medical field also. So in this session, we will see a small two applications related to this pattern recognition as well as image processing technology. So most of us, since we belong to, I hope we belongs to ECE background, we may be familiar with image processing. So we will have a quick look on this one, and we will see two important applications that are related to our real-time sensory organs. That is, one is an eye and another one is a skin. Because eye plays a vital role nowadays. Without eye, definitely we cannot imagine a world. We cannot even, if we cannot imagine a world, and we cannot do anything without our eyes. Even if you close your eyes and if you try to walk for a particular particular distance, definitely we cannot do that one. So eye plays a vital role. And similarly, the skin. That is also another sensory organ. So we will see small examples related to this eye and as well as the skin. So first thing, before that, I just want to tell a brief introduction about this image processing. So image processing, it is a method to perform some operation on an image. So that image is captured with the help of a sensor, that is camera. So image, you know very well, it is a two-dimensional matrix consisting of the smallest picture element. It is called as pixel, or you will call it as a pearl. So what is the purpose of this image processing? The image processing is used in order to get an enhanced image or to extract some useful information from it. So this is the main purpose of doing this image processing. So in the field of medical imaging, if you want to detect a particular disease present in the human body, and even nowadays the presence of corona diseases can be identified with the help of the CT scan. So that can also be done with the help of this image processing technology. Using that, we can also employ that deep learning or machine learning algorithm to classify that images as normal or abnormal images. So nowadays, doctors are fixing some percentage, but instead that is also done with the help of the X-ray or CT images only. So in this way, this image processing plays a vital role. So image processing is one of a type of a signal processing, whereas the input is a two-dimensional signal. That is nothing but an image, and the output may be an image. So we are giving the input as an image, and we can expect the output as an image, or we can expect the characteristics or the features related with that image as an output. So nowadays, I told you earlier, image processing, it is rapidly growing technologies. So in this part, particularly, we are going to discuss about the medical image processing and the medical imaging. So the medical imaging, it refers to the technique and the process used to create the images of various parts of the human body for the purpose of diagnosis and for the purpose of treatment with the help of digital technology. So this is the main importance of digital imaging. So earlier we used the traditional approaches. In the case of a traditional approaches, the patients are analyzed by the visual examination of the gray level image on a radiological film. The X-ray will be taken. So based on the X-ray, the doctor will place the X-ray in a screen, and after his notification, he will identify the diseases present in the human body. The films are used by the physician. But in this case, if suppose the physician is an experienced person, he can detect the diseases earlier. But in case of a severe diseases, even the physician, that is the young physician, may struggle to identify the disease quickly and correctly. But if you see in the case of a medical field, even one person should not be affected with our system. So that is a very, very important thing. So even the anatomical structures looks very different from the 3D appearance. So it is very difficult for some physicians to detect the diseases manually. So that we are moving on nowadays, we are moving on into the digital imaging. So the digital imaging is one of the effective process. It helps to analyze the image in order to extract, in order to quantify and interpret the information for the successful diagnosis. So once we diagnose exactly the disease present in the body, we can give a medicine and we can cure it. So this successful diagnosis depends on plays a vital role. Even if you are even as a leader, we have to diagnose the problem, what is happening in our places, that is either in working places or in a home. So this plays a vital role, and this requires a collaboration between the physician as well as the engineers also. So definitely, even though the technology develops, this needs a collaboration between the physician as well as the engineers. So next one is regarding the imaging modalities. So we are having different types of imaging modalities are available for the detection of a particular diseases. And the one among them is magnetic resonance imaging, MRI images. We are having the ultrasound images, angiography images, CT images, which helps us nowadays for detecting the coronavirus, and the fundus images. And now we are going to have a small discussion on this fundus images and its processing. So what is the process usually happen in this medical image processing means the images are captured with the help of the medical sensors, that is medical equipments. So we have discussed different types of medical sensors earlier. Using that medical sensor, the medical devices, that is even the camera, we are detecting the medical, the person medical images are collected. So once the images are collected, we have to identify the disease. So this can be done with the help of a lot of process. So we cannot immediately predict the disease by seeing the image alone. So definitely we have to we have to identify the diseases correctly based on the experience. So, but if you consider in our India, we are having less physicians compared to the people, those who are having diseases. So we are in need of an automatic system for the detection of the diseases. So once the images are captured, or once the images are collected, it is pre-processed. So the main functions of pre-processing I will explain in the upcoming slide. And this is just an overview of the medical image processing systems. And this can be applicable for any type of image processing system also. So once the images are captured, once the databases are collected, these images are pre-processed. So after pre-processing, these images are applied to the process of segmentation, where the particular region or a particular portion of a particular disease will be segmented. So after segmentation, the different types of features will be collected, and then these features, the features will represent whether there is a normal, whether the person is normal, or whether he is having a disease. And this is done with the help of the classification algorithm. So we can employ machine learning, or we can employ a deep learning algorithm for this classification process. And this classification, this classifies the image as a normal image or abnormal image. So you can also use a deep learning or a machine learning algorithm, a CNN algorithm like that. And you can even grade the level of the disease also. Instead of simply classifying as normal and abnormal, you can classify the image as, you can classify the category of the disease, the grade level of the diseases present in the human body. You can classify this as a mild, moderate, or severe. So like that also we can do. So this is the overall system. You can, suppose if you are young researchers, you can concentrate on doing research in any kind of this block. Either you can start with the pre-processing. In pre-processing, there are plenty of algorithms are there for enhancing the images. So without enhancing, definitely the image, if you use the raw image, definitely it may take time, or it may give a low accuracy. So definitely there is a need of pre-processing. And whenever you are going for the real-time images, Whereas whenever you are using the database images, according to me, there is no need of pre-processing. Pre-processing is not needed. And next thing, you can concentrate your research work even on this segmentation part alone, because there are a lot of segmentation algorithms are there. If you are working on image processing and you have chosen image processing as your research field, you can compare different types of segmentation algorithm present in the literature, and you can bring a lot of new algorithms also. A novel algorithm also you can do, and you can try with MATLAB or Python. And similarly, the feature extractions. So whenever you are extracting the features, you have to extract a solid number of features. So that is, you should not extract more number of features, as well as you should not extract less number of features. So countable or solid number of features must be extracted. And even in that, you can include this future optimization process. After the feature extraction, you can include a future optimization process. In that future optimization, you can eradicate the features that are not useful for detecting the particular disease. So you can also do like that. And next thing, where you can, what are the diseases, different types of diseases that you can identify with the help of this process. Earlier I explained about this block diagram. So that same block diagram can be used for detecting different types of diseases, starting with diabetic retinopathy. Even you can detect the tumor present in the brain with the help of this methodology. You can detect diseases present in the human body by the way of nail image processing. So today in this session, we will have a look on diabetic retinopathy as well as nail image processing. Then we can detect the cancer present in the lungs with the help of this image processing. Next one, mammogram image processing is there. Skin disease identification is there. So we can identify the cancer present in the liver with the help of this medical sensor technology, that is imaging technology. And blood diseases can be identified, neuropathy diseases can be identified, and this one regarding the stability, that is Parkinson diseases, can also be identified with the help of this image processing technology. So in this session, as I mentioned earlier, we can have a look on this diabetic retinopathy detection as well as the nail image processing. So diabetic retinopathy, so we will have a quick look on this diabetic retinopathy. So developing countries, we are have been faced with a lot of society-related diseases. So, and the one among them is diabetes. So most of the developing countries, even our India, is faced with a lot of society-related diseases. And even in this pandemic time, we are unable to safeguard the most of the corona persons because of this diabetes only. Even a person who is having a high diabetes, we are not even able to have the vaccination also. That is also one of the things. So the one among them is diabetes. And the World Health Organization, that is WHO, it estimated that nearly 135 million people around the world are having the diabetes, and it is expected that this count will increase to 366 million by the year of 2030. So this is just an estimation only. It is, but it is in our hand whether to improve or decrease. And if you see among the top 10 countries, the 3 countries are playing a vital role, and this is the status with respect to 2013 only. So in that, the China stands first, next to India, and then in the third position, US. So among almost half of the people with diabetes lives in just 3 countries like China and India and USA. And with a person count of 65 million, our country, India, it is expected that it may become the diabetic capital of the world. So this should not happen. We have to prevent it. And the major important thing that we have to notice is 1 in 2 people in the world with diabetes, they doesn't know whether they have it or not. So that is another important thing we have to consider. So 1 in 2 people with diabetes, they doesn't know whether they have diabetes or not. So next thing, what is a diabetes and what is diabetic retinopathy, that we will discuss in the upcoming session. So diabetes, it is a severe disease that affects various human body, various parts of the human body, like retina, kidney, nerve, heart, and diseases, and skin. So the cause of what is diabetic retinopathy means the cause of blindness due to the retinal damage by diabetes is called as diabetic retinopathy. Because of the diabetes, the retina get damaged. So this is nothing but a diabetic retinopathy. And if you didn't consider, or if you have not take a proper medical treatment, definitely it will cause us a blindness. And what is the interesting thing, or what is the shocking thing, is 1 out of 3 diabetic persons, 1 out of 3 diabetic person have the sign of diabetic retinopathy. And 10 out of 100 diabetic retinopathy persons are very severe. So this is one of the shocking thing also, and they are in need of immediate referral of ophthalmologist. So regarding the diabetic retinopathy, we can classify this diabetic retinopathy into 3 different level based on the severity. So we can classify into 3 different categories. First one is non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, proliferative diabetic retinopathy, and clinically significant macular edema. So what is non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy? So this is the earliest stage of diabetic retinopathy, and if we detect this diabetic retinopathy at this stage, we can extend the safety level of the human, that is safety level of the eye. We cannot tell that we cannot completely stop it one, but we can extend the safety level. So at this stage, the patients, they don't feel any visual system. That is the important thing. They don't feel any visual impairment, and they don't realize any changes in the eye. The diabetic persons, they will be very, they look very similar. They don't feel any changes in the eye, any changes in the eye characteristics. But it is this non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy. It is characterized by the microscopic leakages of the lipids, proteins, water, and other molecules from the blood vessels of the retina, which means that the blood vessels present in the retina, it starts to leak the protein content, the water content, and other molecules. So because of it extend the quality of vision. It will affect the quality of vision and prevent the complication. So one of the clinical, though we don't have any visual impairment at this stage, some of the clinical features are there. So the clinical features can be identified by employing the sensor technology. Even nowadays, in this regard, I want to share with you that even nowadays, what is happening in this diabetic retinopathy means we are using the smartphone cameras along with the lenses to capture the retinal image, and then it is transferred to the doctors, or even we are having a mobile app for processing this image, and the images are processed, and it will predict whether the person is having a particular disease. So that will not be 100% accurate, but it will give an alert message. So based on that alert, we can consult a doctor. It will tell whether we need to consult an ophthalmologist or not. So some of the clinical features that helps to detect this non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy are exudates, microaneurysm, hemorrhages, and cotton wool spots. So these are all the clinical features. So what is an exudate? Exudate is nothing but a protein and lipid leakages. Exudate is nothing but the protein and the lipid leakages from the weaker blood vessels of the retina. So these are called as the exudates, and they look in white color or in yellow colors. It appears as a bright yellow or white lessons, and it will having a variable shape and size. It will differ from one person to another person. So based on the stages also it will vary. And the next two clinical features that helps to detect this non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy is nothing but a microaneurysm. So this microaneurysm, it appears as a small red dots in the retina. And it is caused, how it is caused means it is caused by the swelling of the capillary wall, blood capillary walls. Because of that swelling, this happens. And it looks like a small red dots. And hemorrhages, the next clinical feature is hemorrhages. Hemorrhages, it appears as a big blood clot. So it occurs as a result of leakage of weak capillaries, as I mentioned earlier, or the burst in the microaneurysm. So, and some other features are there, some other anatomical structures are also help us to detect the presence of this diabetic retinopathy. And the two anatomical structures that helps us to identify or to detect this level of diabetic retinopathy is optic disc as well as macula. So optic disc is nothing but this central part, this bright circular region where the blood vessel emanate is called as this optic disc. And macula, which is nothing but the center of the retina. So this is the image of a retina. So in this, the center of the retina is called as macula. And if suppose The center of this macular region is called as fovea. If suppose this exudate is present in this region, it will be considered as the severe stage. So it will be considered, it will be called as CSME that we will discuss in the upcoming slide. So the next thing, as I told you earlier, it will have, this is the exudates. These are all the exudates, and it is called as hard exudates. And if it is white in color, it will be considered as the soft exudates. The soft exudates appears like a cotton. So next one is this is nothing but the hemorrhages. Big blood clot is called as hemorrhages, and there will be small dots inside this retina. Red dots. They are small red dots. They are considered as the microaneurysm. And this is the first clinical symptoms that we can detect for this presence of diabetic retinopathy. So this is the blood vessels. Because of this blood vessel leakages only, we can note these clinical features also. So next type of diabetic retinopathy is nothing but second level, that is proliferative diabetic retinopathy. So this is an advanced stage of diabetic retinopathy. So the non-proliferative diabetic retinopathy, that is the earlier stage. Once you detect in that particular stage, we can extend that is the vision of the human. So this is nothing but an advanced stage of diabetic retinopathy, and this is characterized by the growth of new abnormal blood vessels. That is in the region of retina, several new abnormal blood vessels will start to grow, and this process is called as neovascularization. So neovascularization means the new abnormal blood vessels will start to grow in this region of the retina. These new abnormal blood vessels, they are very much fragile and may rupture and bleed, causing the sudden loss of vision. So this is the important thing. Next thing, this proliferative diabetic retinopathy. So other characteristics of this proliferative diabetic retinopathy are vitreous hemorrhages. That is, hemorrhages becomes very intensive. Pre-retinal hemorrhages, retinal detachment, and macular edema. So these are all some other characteristics of proliferative diabetic retinopathy. Moving on with the third level of diabetic retinopathy is nothing but, as I told you earlier, CSME, clinically significant macular edema, and this is an extremely severe stage. So, and this is characterized by the thickening of the retina within the center of the macula. So when the hard exudates, that is that yellow color part, it appears within the center, that is the center of the macula, then it will be considered as the CSME, clinically significant macular edema. So next one, what is an ophthalmoscopy? How it helps us to detect these diseases? So ophthalmoscopy is part of an eye examination, which will help the ophthalmologist to see inside the fundus of the human eye. Here, our sensor plays a vital role. So we are having that direct ophthalmoscopy as well as indirect ophthalmoscopy. So this image shows the difference between the direct and indirect ophthalmoscopy. So in direct ophthalmoscopy, we will have a device attached with a medical sensor for detecting the presence of the diseases. And nowadays, this is the earlier, this is one of the earlier methodology used to detect this diabetic retinopathy. And nowadays, now we can do with the help of a lens and our smartphones also. So this is nothing but the direct ophthalmoscopy, and this one shows the indirect ophthalmoscopy. Here the sensors will be placed here, placed at the head, and then the retina are viewed with the help of a lens. So this is nothing but indirect ophthalmoscopy. So next thing is the fundus camera, which plays a vital role for detecting the fundal images. That is the retinal image of a retina. So the retinal camera used to, what is fundus camera means, the retinal camera used to visualize the interior surface of the eye is called as fundus camera. And this is a specially designed low power microscope with a camera attached to it. So in this fundus camera, we are having two different types. First one is mydriatic camera and another one is a non-mydriatic camera. So mydriatis, what is mydriatis and what is non-mydriatis? So in this, we want to tell one thing. Whenever we go for eye hospital, whenever we go for consulting an ophthalmologist, so before consulting the ophthalmologist, the nurses, they used to apply a small liquid to our eye, and they asked us to close our eyes and sit for nearly 10 to 15 minutes. So that is nothing but dilated. That is the process of dilation. So that is done mainly to get a clear view of the retina. Whereas undilated, in sense, there will no chemical component will be applied to get the view of a retina. So this is nothing but mydriasis. But if you see the applied medicine, that is the applied liquid, it may sometimes causes an irritation to the people, so that they will touch their eye unknowingly. They cannot control to touch their eye, so definitely they will touch their eye. And after that, again the nurses will apply some liquid to the patient eye, and again he will be allowed to sit for 5 to 10 minutes without touching the eye. So the main reason for doing that one is to get a clear view of the retina process. So this is nothing but mydriasis. Whereas nowadays we are moving on to the non-mydriatic process. Non-mydriatic, then this happened because of the development of the sensor technology. And so these are all the cameras that we are using for this non-mydriatic process. So in the process of non-mydriasis, there is no need to do dilation. There is no need to apply any chemical agent to our eye, and there is no need to wait for a particular time. So even you can enter directly to the hospital, you can consult the doctor, the retina will be captured directly without any affections. So that is without any affection in the quality. So these are all the cameras that we are using for to obtain these retinal images. COVA, TOPCon, TRC, NWA. I hope this you might be familiar with this camera if you went for some eye hospital. But according to me, the prevention is better than cure. So instead of leaving us to reach the last level and then taking medicines, so we have to diagnose it earlier. So if suppose a patient is having diabetes, I request them to check their eye at least 2 times a year. So this will be a very good practice. This will also help them to prevent their vision loss. So because most of the diabetic persons, I have seen a lot of diabetic persons have lost their eye, human eye, that because of this reason only. So it's a kind advice that if suppose a person is having diabetes, it is a good advice to consult the eye doctor, even though you don't feel any symptoms, even though you don't feel any problem in your eye. It's a good practice to consult an ophthalmologist at least 2 times a year for checking your eye. So what is the important thing? Even though the technology develops, that the number of ophthalmologists in our country is less compared to the number of people having diabetes. So the detection of the diseases by analyzing the color retinal images is time consuming. We are not having as much ophthalmologists compared to the people who are having diabetes. So we are in need of an automated system, automated computer aided system to detect the diseases as well as to grade the disease. To grade the disease as healthy or it is having a disease that is mild, moderate, or severe, almost in no time. So even we don't have a time to check to the doctor, to consult the doctor. Nowadays we are doing like that only. It is happening us. It is happening to us. So only I am telling that. So we are moving on with the development of technology. So we are in need of an efficient, automated, computer-aided diagnosis system to detect and grade the diseases. So what is the methodology? As I told you earlier, this is the methodology used for detecting the presence of the diseases. So next thing is the image acquisition. So image acquisition devices, I have already shown you the different types of cameras used for detecting the presence of, for detecting or for capturing the human retina. So in addition to that, in addition to the capturing process, if suppose if you are working on your research work in this field of diabetic retinopathy, so there are for those people, I just want to share with you that there are a lot of databases, ready-made databases are available in the internet with the ground truth images also. Ground truth image is nothing but the hand-drawn images given by the doctors. So that is also available in the database. So these are all some of the databases used for detecting the presence of diabetic retinopathy. So the Diaret, DB1, Mesidor, Erlangen, and STAR. In addition to that, there are a lot of databases are also there. Diaret DB2 is there, Drive is there. So there are a lot of databases, but among this one, this Mesidor is having a lot of images. So next thing is regarding the pre-processing. So pre-processing, as I told you earlier, all the images, whenever you captured, it will not be in a good quality. It may have poor illumination. It may have poor contrast. It may not be useful for processing. So what we have to do means we cannot force the patients to take the image again and again. So what we have to do means we have to think to enhance the image. So that is nothing but the pre-processing process. So what is the purpose of this pre-processing is it is a process to improve the image, and if the illumination is non-uniform, we need to improve it, and it's a process to make a uniform illumination, and pre-processing is to improve the contrast of a particular image. And this is done with the help of an illumination equalization technique. And we also having in this pre-processing, we will apply different types of filters also for enhancing the image. And one more thing I want to share with you, that if you are employing your research idea with real-time images, you can go for this one. Whereas if you are employing this database images, there is no need to enhance there is no need to go for this pre-processing. You can easily convert that RGB domain, or you can extract a particular plane from RGB, and you can use it for processing. For example, if you consider this diabetic retinopathy, if you want to detect exudates, that is one of the clinical symptoms that I told you earlier. If you want to detect that particular feature, there is no need to convert from RGB to grayscale or RGB to binary. Even instead, you can take the green plane of a particular image. You can, using the MATLAB, you can separate the green plane of a particular image, and you can use it for further processing. What is the reason for selecting that particular green plane is in sense? You can see that exudates, or you can have a view of that exudates more clearly in the green plane compared to the red plane or the blue plane. So that is the main reasons. And so whenever you are going for that is real-time detection process, whenever you are developing a medical system to detect the presence of diseases in using the practical images, that is real-time images, and you can get these images from the hospital with the consent, with the proper consent, and with the consent of the doctor as well as the patients. You can collect these prime images also. So suppose if you are employing with the real-time images, you can think of this pre-processing, and you can think of the different types of filters. And nowadays, instead of static filters, mostly dynamic adaptive filters are used for removing the presence of noise, for improving the contrast also. But what is done in this field means, if you see the papers, most of the journal publications are the research papers in this field. Most of the researchers, they will took the database images, and they will add the noise, and they will remove the noise unwantedly. So this can be applicable for a student project. And also my suggestion is, don't encourage this for the student project also. So even in the student projects, what normally they will do means, so in the pre-processing stage, they will include a salt and pepper noise using the MATLAB code, IM add noise off, using the command IM add noise off. So in that IM add noise, they will add the salt and pepper noise. So definitely for removing that salt and pepper noise, you have to apply some filter that you will use it as a median filters. So they will apply median filter coding to remove this salt and pepper noise. So this is not a good practice. So what my suggestion is, whenever, even if you are giving your students a project related to this image processing, so please let them know that they should not add noise and remove noise. And whenever they are employing with real-time images, they can go for pre-processing, and that too, suitable filters must be applied. So we can do a lot of analysis. We can employ mean filters, we can apply median filters, we can do some other harmonic mean filters, different types, average filters are there. So we can employ different types of filters, but our objective, we have to reach the objective in a better way. So for this only, I am suggesting, so whenever you are employing with real-time images, you can go for this pre-processing process. And next thing is nothing but the segmentation. So you know what is, we might be familiar with the segmentation process. Even we will segment our classes into 2 or 3 different categories based on the mark secured by them. So that too for the development of the individual student also. So in our, suppose if we in our classes, We used to segment the category of the students as A, B, C. Those who are securing above 8, we will classify them as category A. And those who are securing 7 and 8, that is 7 to 8, we will categorize them as B, and below 7 we will categorize them as C. So that we can do. So that is nothing but segmentation process. So what is the purpose of segmentation in the classroom? We have to give a more concentration on the slow learners. We have to give some other additional value-added courses to the bright students. So this is the main reason for segmenting the students in the classroom. So like that, in the case of image processing, we can segment the regions. We can, if you are working with a large image, you can segment them. You can concentrate on a particular quadrant or particular region, and then you can detect the disease very easily. So segmentation, what is segmentation means? Segmentation of an image is an important aspect in the computer vision as well as machine learning. The main purpose of this segmentation is to partition the image into several segments with respect to some properties, like similar colors, similar textures, etc. So in our real-time classrooms, we segment with respect to the marks secured by them, arrears, number of arrears having based on them. So in this category, we will get segment. Whereas here we can categorize the segment the image based on the similar color, similar texture, etc. For example, if you see the exudate parts, so exudates appears only in yellow in color. So we can segment that exudates separately by collecting the yellow region alone. So that is nothing but segmentation. So there are, as I mentioned earlier, there are several types of algorithms are there for the segment process. But still, it is a challenging task. You can introduce a novel algorithm for the segmentation process also. So there are a lot of algorithms. If you introduce a k-means algorithm, there is a pillar k-means algorithm for identifying that k point, the starting point, initial point. So like that, there are a lot of machine learning algorithms are there for the purpose of segmentation. So even if you are a researcher and if you are giving a project to your students, you can ask them to compare the different types of segmentation algorithms. And nowadays it is mostly available. The ready-made tools are also available even in the MATLAB also. And next thing, as I told you earlier, it divides the entire image into homogeneous region. That is the region consisting of same type of color, shape, or size. So next process in the detection of diseases is nothing but future extraction. So future instance, it's supposed if we see the futures, we can if we see if a doctor if a doctor sees the patient report, that is X-ray of a particular person, he or she can detect the diseases directly. But we are giving this input to a system. The system doesn't know these features. So we only have to tell them whether there is a features for normal, whether it is a feature for abnormal. So that is nothing but this feature extraction. So this feature extraction, that is in order to recognize the symptoms from the segmented images, different attributes were extracted. That is the different features were extracted. So what are the different features that normally were extracted to detect the presence of disease? Is first thing is circularity. So next thing is rectangularity, eccentricity, elongation, contrast, brightness, cluster shade, and cluster prominence. Circularity, why there is a need of this circularity? Example I am telling. As I mentioned earlier, microaneurysm, it appears as a small red dots. It usually appears in the form of a circle. So this circularity feature will help us to detect the presence of microaneurysm. And this can be done with the help of the other different techniques are there for detecting the presence of, for extracting the features. And one among them is GLCM matrix, gray level co-occurrence matrix. So this will be very easiest one. You might, if you have here consider this as a image, and the values present inside this matrix represents the gray level of the input image. So this 1 denotes the gray level, this one 5 denotes the gray level, 8 denotes the gray level of a particular image. So instead of processing with this input image, the gray level matrix will be calculated, will be found from the input image. For example, here the maximum gray level is 8. So 8 row and 8 column will be formed. And then it will be checked. For example, 1 cross 1, first row, first column means the number of times 1, 1 is repeated only one time. So we have entered this at 1. Similarly, if you see 1, 2, the combination of 1 and 2. Here we are having the combination of 1 and 2 continuously, and here also we are having a combination of 1 and 2. So we are having 2 times in our input image. So we have entered it as 2. Similarly, if you see 1, 3 combination, so there will not be any 1, 3 combination in the row wise. So you should not see in the column wise, it should be seen in the row wise only. So 1, 3 combination, there is no 1, 3 combination, so it is 0. So like that, this gray level co-occurrence matrix will be calculated from the input image, and based on this gray level co-occurrence matrix, the different attributes like that circularity, rectangularity, that cluster shade will be calculated. And there is a separate formula for calculating all these features. And once the features are calculated, so these features will tell us whether it is a normal or abnormal. So we are going to classify it. We are going to separate it as a normal or abnormal. So that is done. It's nothing but a grading of this diabetic retinopathy. So grading, in sense, we can grade into 2 different categories. First one category is normal. In another different category, you can classify it as a mild, moderate, or severe. If suppose there is no presence of any diseases, so you can classify it as a normal. If suppose there is a small or a slight percentage of clinical features, clinical symptoms, we can classify it as a mild. If suppose a person is having a huge number of clinical features, you can classify it as a severe. So based on this category, we will classify the level of the diseases also. So these are all some of the results that I obtained earlier. So this is the gray level image. So as I mentioned earlier, this is the green plane image. So green plane is segmented, and this is the result for detection of this exudate part. So these are all the different pre-processing stages for the real-time images. And this is the output of this segmentation process. This yellow color, this is for the normal image. So in normal image, there will be no presence of exudates. So we will get only the output as optic disc only. Whereas if we consider abnormal images, we will get optic disc as well as we will get the presence of exudates. So definitely the accuracy of this algorithm will be somewhat less, since the optic discs are not accurately detected. So this is some of the sample outputs that I want to show you. And earlier I told you about the ground truth image. So this is one of the ground truth image, and this image is drawn by the doctors. The doctors, they will draw with the help of using their hand, they will mention these are all the affected part, these are all the normal part, like that they will segment. So this is nothing but the ground truth image. And this output, you can run it on MATLAB, or you can nowadays you can use Python, OpenCV, and you can. The only important thing you have to consider is how much time the algorithm takes for calculating. That is also very, very important. And the 2 important parameters that are used to measure the performance of the developed system are sensitivity and specificity. So this is the formula for calculating the sensitivity as well as specificity. So true positive, true negative, false positive, false negative. We will see what is this true positive. True in sense you are having this is. False in true in sense what you are telling is right. So positive in sense you are having that disease. So in this case of diabetic retinopathy, positive means there is a presence of some clinical symptoms. So clinical symptoms, we have mentioned different types of clinical symptoms, and one among them is exudates. So positive means the exudate pixel, exudate is nothing but we are having that particular disease. So that is nothing but positive. So exudate are correctly detected as exudate. So that is nothing but true positive. Positive means exudate, negative means non-exudate. True instance, it is correctly detected. False instance, wrongly detected. Wrongly detected means exudate, actually it is an exudate pixel, but our algorithm detected this exudate pixel as a non-exudate pixel. So that is nothing but the false positive. Similarly for the false negative. So these are all the performance parameter usually that we are employing for the detection of the performance of a particular system. So in this area, if you have chosen the research area in the field of diabetic retinopathy, so what are the things that you can, how you can extend your research work? So you can design a system for the detection of advanced symptoms. Advanced symptom in sense, you can design a system for the detection of neovascularization. You can design a system for the detection of virtuous hemorrhages also. So this is the extension that you can do. And also one more thing, you can employ optimization algorithm for extracting or for using the optimization of features. So all the features that you are collecting from the segmented images or the original images will not be helpful to you for detecting a particular disease. Sometimes some feature will be more useful. In some case of some diseases, some features will not be more useful. So this can be identified with the help of future optimization process. So in that area, you can apply a lot of soft computing techniques, optimization algorithm you can apply. You can use PSO, you can use ant colony optimization. You can employ different types of optimization algorithm also. So this is the next thing you can do. And also nowadays, deep learning is developing a lot. So you can employ deep learning algorithm for this detection of this diabetic retinopathy. And you can choose a larger databases. Instead of choosing a database consisting of 50 or 100 images, you can choose a large databases, and you can choose two different databases. You can train your system on one database, and you can test your system on some other databases. This will help you to improve the performance also. You can choose 2 or 3 different databases. You can train your images in a single database containing the particular disease, and you can employ the testing on different databases. That also done. So this is also you can extend your in this way also you can extend your research work. So this is another feature. So these are the one of the important thing. Why I have explained this because our sensor eye plays a vital role. We have to give importance to our human body. Only a sound body makes a sound mind. So only I am telling this one. And the next features, the next type of diseases is nothing but nail image processing. So there are different ways available, and there are different methodologies available in healthcare domain to diagnose the disease in the human body. And one among them is human nail color. That is, by with the help of the color of a human nail, we can detect or we can predict the existence of diseases. And this happened earlier, whenever in the year of 1980 and above and below above that is 1970s. We will have that is our grandmother or great grandmother. They used to identify the disease of the our people by seeing the nail of a particular persons, that is particular people. So this happened earlier as a practice, and now we are changing everything into a system. So once you, by seeing your nail, human nail, we can detect the presence of disease in your body. And sometimes we doesn't know. We will think that our nail got broken and we have some other features, but that denotes some other diseases present in our human body. And I am not threatening you. You can. First thing is we have to consult the doctor if you have any thinking. So only I am telling this one. But you can be aware. If suppose you have a continuous affection in your nail, you can better consult a better doctor, good doctor for identification of diseases instead of taking medicine by ourselves. So human nail plays an important role for predicting the diseases with the nail color changes, the shape changes, etc. If the nail is pink, that is pink nail, it indicates the healthy human, whereas a particular color changes in the nail, it indicates certain diseases. So there are many diseases can be predicted by the color of a nail, such as pale nail indicates anemia. If there is a pale nail, it indicates the presence of anemia. Congestive heart failure, liver diseases, and malnutrition. So, and this based on this color itself, you should not identify, but this will be an alert for you. And the human nail, it provides a useful information about the disorder or any other malnutrition imbalances. So next thing is the different parts of the nail. This is the different nail image. So in this region is called as free edge region, and this is called as the nail body. And this one denotes the lunula, and this one is the cuticle. This one is called as cuticle, and this is the nail root where the nail region originates. Is called as nail. Why I'm explaining this one is by using our sensor technology, that is with the help of a camera, even with the help of our mobile phone, we can detect the presence of these diseases later to our nail. And there is lunula. This is nothing but the moon shape observed at the base of the nail plate. And the cuticle, so over the base of the nail plate, the flat thin tissue is called as cuticle, the nail root, and the nail plate. So that we discussed in the previous image. So how this nail color implication? What are the nail color implications? And this is based on the reference, based on the research work I am sharing with you, and I have not experimented it practically. So first thing is pink nail. If suppose the color of the nail is pink in color, it indicates the healthy nail, which in turn indicates the good health condition. Whereas if suppose the nail is pure white, it shows the lack of iron and poor circulation. So in which the blood is not reaching the end of your finger and are resulting into white nail. It indicates the anemia or malnutrition. And next one is red purple. If suppose your nail is in red purple, it shows an upset in the digestive system caused by overconsumption of sugar or pharmaceutical drugs. Fruits and juice results into a red purple nail. And the suppose white spot, some of us can able to see a white spot, which shows the lack of zinc in our human body. It indicates the high content of sugar as well as the lack of zinc, which is required in the digestion process. So these are all the different types of nail, and along with the possible diseases that you have. If suppose the nail is white, it will tells that a liver problem or anemia. If it is in yellow in color, there may be a possibility of lung diseases or diabetes or thyroid diseases. Or if suppose there is a bluish nails, there will be a blue color, slight blue color will appear. That denotes the heart problem or emphysema. If suppose the nail is pale nail, if it is a plain nail, it tells that anemia, congestive liver diseases, and malnutrition. If suppose if you can see a dark lines beneath the nail, it will tell that there is a skin cancer. So it's one of the severe thing you have to consider. And this curved like part, this will tell us a systematic disease. And this kind of terry lines, there's different. This will tell us about the diabetes, congestive heart failures, etc. So what you can do for detecting this presence of disease, you can develop a medical system using our sensors, that is camera and our mobile phones. So what is the process that we have that is going to detect this? The nail image is captured with the help of a camera. And it is pre-processed since it is a real image. So in this pre-processing, what we will do means we will crop a particular region of a particular nail. So we will crop that region, and then we can use some algorithm for detecting the presence of diseases. So you can use machine learning classifier or classifier algorithm, training and testing algorithm. So you can do. So in this, along with that, we can have a database is used for comparison purposes. For once the training is done, we can do the testing process also. So after that testing, we can predict the result using the machine learning algorithm or deep CNN, etc. So based on the output, we can predict the possibility of diseases, even with the help of our mobile phones. So once we get an alert, we have to use only as an alert only. So after this alert, we have to consult our doctor based on the severity level. Because nowadays we are getting a lot of apps, mobile apps are there for detecting these kind of some problems. So only based on the app, we should not decide ourselves. We should not get affected. So we have to. The better thing is we have to consult doctor and we have to take a particular decision as well as particular medicine. And the last part of today's session is nothing but the wearable devices. So there are a lot of wearable devices are used for the measurement of particular diseases. So the wearable devices, they use sensors to collect the raw data from the measurement, and these are stored and used for monitoring the presence, exercise the activity, assessing the performance, giving them alert to take the pills. So giving them an alert to take medicines, even the food, etc. In addition, using a different kind of sensor, even nowadays, because of the development of Arduino and Raspberry Pi, as mentioned you earlier, because of the advancement of Arduino and Raspberry Pi, we can make it as a plug and play method, and we can transfer the information, or we can share the information to the nearby hospital. Even if suppose the doctor is in remote location, we can share the data with them. Based on that, based on the suggestion, we can have our medicine also. So this is the thing regarding the wearable devices. And one of the wearable devices that now we are employing is pulse oximeter. And most of us nowadays, in most of our home, we are having a pulse oximeters. So the pulse oximeter is a quick, non-invasive and completely painless test. So non-invasive in sense without making any crack, without injecting anything, without doing any operations, without doing anything. that is that technology is nothing but that method is nothing but a non-invasive. So the pulse oximeter is a quick, non-invasive, and completely painless test. So it comes with no risk aside from the potential skin irritation from the adhesive used in some types of probes, but not in all. So what is the purpose and uses? The purpose of pulse oximeter, we know very well that what is the purpose of pulse oximeter. So pulse oximeter is used to detect the presence of oxygen level content and also the heartbeat of the human being. The purpose of pulse oximeter is to check how well your heart is pumping the oxygen through your body. So that is very, very important. It may be used to monitor the health of an individual with any type of conditions that can affect blood oxygen level, especially whenever they are in hospital or in home. So these conditions include asthma, pneumonia, lung cancer, anemia, heart attack, and congenital heart defects also. So there are a number of different common use cases for pulse oximetry. So to assess how well lung medicine is working, that can be done with the help of this pulse oximeter. Nowadays, we are using it for detecting our oxygen level alone, but it can also be used for some other purposes, like to assess how well a lung medication is working. It also helps us to evaluate whether someone needs breathing or not. That is, a person needs is having a breathing problem or not. So, and whether he need a ventilator or not, and like that of that oxygen level, to monitor the oxygen level during or after surgical procedures. That pulse oximeters are very much helpful, and this pulse oximeter also helps us to determine how effective supplemental oxygen therapy is, particularly when the treatment is new for a particular person. It also helps to assess someone's ability to tolerate increased physical activity. And during sleep study, that is sleep apnea, this also helps to detect the sleep apnea, which I told you earlier. So a person will have a sound sleep and also will also have a snore sleep for a long period of time. But even after that, the next day, the person may feel very tired. So this is nothing but sleep apnea. So how it works, you know very well that this is working only because of the sensors, infrared sensors only. So based on the light technology only, it is working. So during a pulse oximetry reading, a small clamp-like device is either placed on a finger, it can be placed in the earlobe or toe. The small beam of light passes through the blood. Usually, we will keep the finger in behind a particular in a clip. So in the upper part of the clip, there will be a light sensors, light, and in the lower part, we will have a photo detector. So the light will passes through our finger and it will reaches the photo detector. So based on that level only, we will detect the presence of oxygen level. So because there is a difference in the wavelength compared to the oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood. So in the oxygenated blood, the wavelength will be different, and in the case of a deoxygenated blood, it will be different. So using that wavelength only, it will detect the presence of the oxygen level also. And you know very well that if the oxygen level falls below 95%, definitely we have to check the PCCM. So these are all the things I want to share with you nowadays, today particularly. So the important thing is we can use this sensor technology for detecting the presence of COVID-19 also. You can use that CT images for detecting that presence of COVID-19. We can, even the students you can give a project for detecting COVID-19 disease by using the CT images. So you can apply, the students can employ a deep learning algorithm and they can detect the presence of disease also. So these are all the things I want to share with you. So thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity. So that's all with my part. Thank you. Sir, Kalpsami sir.
Sir,
Sir, thank you,
sir,
ma'am.
slide is not, sir.
Yes, sir, I completed, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir. Sir, participants. Sir, participants. I unmute all. Please unmute your mic and ask any clarification? Please wait a minute, sir. Because it's WebEx, it will take 1 minute. From participant side, please unmute your mic and ask any clarification.
Yes, there is one
Sir,
question.
one more. Yes,
Yes,
sir.
in real-time problem solving, whether this deep learning approach is feasible. Yes, definitely it is feasible. We can go with the deep learning.
Sir,
Yes, ma'am.
sir, one more question from audience side, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Sir, in the real-time problem, we can use deep learning approach. Is feasible
Yes.
for this?
Yes, yes. Just now I answered that question. Yes,
sir.
we can employ deep learning for the real-time problem solving also.
Sir, which simulation platform is?
Nowadays we are mostly employing Python for implementing all the deep learning algorithm. So we can go with the Python. Python is better.
Sir, based on the application, if you can select deep learning or machine learning,
Yes, yes.
it's our choice or application oriented.
It depends on our choice only. But if you see the accuracy and the processing speed of deep learning, it is more compared to that some of the machine learning algorithms. For example, if you consider deep CNN compare with the SVM, deep CNN will give more output, more accuracy compared to that SVM, and also with less time. So that is the important thing. So we can go with the deep learning algorithm.
Sir, one more question from participant side. In real world scenario, the mathematical model is not available for all systems. And how we can proceed,
Yes,
sir?
that we only have to develop a model. Initially, we have to develop the mathematical model similar to that of that is using the differential equations. Like that, we have to develop the mathematical model, and using the trial and error method only, we have to develop.
Okay, sir. In healthcare technology, we can use the sensors. In which sensor is very applicable and suitable for this pandemic situation, sir, for the detecting the oximeter
No,
pulses?
actually, it depends on the particular type of disease, as well as it depends on the severity level of the diseases. So that also, the severity level also plays a vital role. So if that is an initial stage, if you want to just measure the oxygen level of the person, you can use pulse oximeter. But if suppose a person is already having fever for 1 or 2 days, definitely we cannot use this pulse oximeter alone. So we have to go for some other CT imaging. So like that, based on the severity level of the image, we have to use the methods also.
Okay, sir. Participant side, please unmute your mic. If you have any clarification, unmute mic and ask. Okay, sir. Sir, shall I conclude the session, sir?
Yes, ma'am. I want to thank the coordinator, my professor, Dr. Karpusamy sir, for giving me this wonderful opportunity. And I also want to thank all the management people, principal, HOD of EC department, all the faculty members of EC team, and all the participants for joining with us and sharing your time with us, time with me, and giving me this wonderful opportunity also. So thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, sir. On behalf of our PSR management, I express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. B. Ramasubramanian, sir, Professor, SRM DRP Engineering College, Trichy. Despite of his busy schedule, he found his valuable time to share his knowledge in the field of sensor and its application, medical imaging, and what are the processes involved in medical image, then how you can find the different diseases using sensor, and also he will explained about the explanation about the wrist wearable devices and pulse oximeter. What are the types we have used and how you can detect the diseases. It's well explanation, sir. Thank you for your wonderful technical session, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Sir, please answer your options, sir.
I stopped sharing, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, sir.
I already stopped sharing.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
There are all the
Arun sir,
participants.
thank you, sir.
He's here only, sir.
Okay.
Rama sir.
Sir, thank you so much, sir, for giving me this
Thank you
wonderful
so much.
opportunity.
Thank you for your valuable session.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, sir. Dear participants, we have the test at 2:30 p.m. 1 minute. Dear participants, you have the test at 2:30 p.m. So you have to join before 10 minutes. So at 2:20, you have to join using WebEx links, same link only. You have 20 questions and 30 minutes duration. So after 3 p.m., the assessment link will be closed. Okay. So before 3 p.m., you have to complete the test. Test time is 30 minutes. Test number of questions for the assessment test is 20 questions. The chat test assessment link will be displayed in a chat box at 2:30 p.m. Okay. So at 3:15 p.m., we have a validatory function. So all the participants are requested to attend the validatory function and also fill the overall feedback form that will be posted in end of the validatory function. So one more important notification for all the participants. So you don't forget to fill and submit the feedback form that is available in the participant Atal portal login. Okay. So all the participants are requested to attend the assessment test at 2:30 p.m. The test link will be posted in your chat box at 2:30. Okay, chat box. Time duration is 30 minutes. So you have to join before 2:30. That is 2:20 p.m. You have to join in your WebEx online WebEx link. If you have any clarification, please ask.
Ma'am, back, ma'am. Attendance link, ma'am.
Yes, sir. This session attendance link will be posted now. It's already posted, sir. Yep. Anything else from participant side? Please unmute yourself and ask the question. If you have any doubt and any clarification regarding assessment test.
Ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
You said another form, feedback form has to be filled. Which one is that? You said regarding
Yes,
Atal
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
feedback.
1 minute, ma'am. Please increase your volume.
Am I audible, ma'am?
Yes, 1 minute, ma'am.
Right.
Yes, ma'am.
Said at last another feedback link has to be filled, right?
Yes,
Said,
ma'am. Overall
yeah.
session,
When,
ma'am. Overall feedback.
So when are we supposed to fill that? Is it after the validation?
After the validatory function,
Okay.
after the validatory function, you have to fill the feedback, overall feedback.
All right.
Okay, ma'am. One in the Atal portal, another one after 3:15.
All right.
Ah. Ma'am, you should be there at 2:25 p.m., ma'am.
Right.
2:20.
Oh,
Okay, ma'am. Anything else?
nothing, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.